This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
We have the awesome zchus to be standing at the Kever of the Maharsha, the Shmuel Eliezer ben Yehuda Eidels, who was born, some say in Poznan, according to most in 1565, some say he was born in Krakow. But the Maharsha is literally part of the Gefes, Gemara, Perish Rashi, Tosfos. He's one of the Balei HaMasorah of Shas and Poskim. It cannot be removed from association with Gemara, Rashi, and Tosfos. In fact, the Baal Shem Tov himself said of the Maharsha that if the world would recognize the Kedusha of the Maharsha, they would literally get down on the floor and lick the dirt off of the Kever. A statement that the Baal Shem did not say about anybody else. So even though the Baal Shem was makir, the awesome Kedusha of the Maharsha, the great Makubal and Goyen, Talmud of Rav Broida, Rav Yonah Lansdorfer. Where if you remember the story we said over, the Chacham Tzvi had a dispute with Rav Broida, but when he saw that Rav Broida had a Talmud like Rav Yonah Lansdorfer, he made up with him. Rav Yonah Lansdorfer writes in his Tzava, in the Kanfei Yonah, he says like this. He says the Kanfei Yonah to his children, Yamoid bediktuk rav al perish hagoyin Maharsha, you have to be medakdek in every word of the Maharsha. Uperushay levad yuchal lahor ene adam b'Torah. Only the Maharsha could illuminate your eyes in Torah. There's no other way, says Rav Yonah Lansdorfer. Ruach Elokim diber bay, ki balade hasogas ruach hakodesh yefshir sheyasa adam sefer b'dar mazeh. There's no way anyone could have wrote a perush on a Rashi and Tosfos like the Maharsha without ruach hakodesh. In fact, the Pri Megadim writes the exact same thing. The Pri Megadim says about a certain Achron who questions the Gemara, he obviously didn't see the Maharsha, that every word of the Maharsha was Beruach HaKodesh. The Avnei Nezer writes, he heard from Mishra the Kotzker, that when you learn, you must learn with two Svarim, Pshat, Maharsha, and the Maharshach, which was the Zayda L'Chsam Sofer. Chazon Ish writes amazing words. Says the Chazon Ish says, the flaw with our generation is slackening off in the learning of the Maharsha. Says the Chazon Ish, Chelek Aleph, Siman Aleph in his letters. It's not right what they do in our generation. Asher Ozvu Limud the Maharsha. The Maharsha is Matana Toiva, Nidna Yisrael, Lezakois Hadoros Haboim. What's special about the Maharsha? Lahargil Haloimdim B'His Amlos HaTorah. To train a person in toiling in Torah. Only toiling in Torah is desirable, not learning superficially. Says the Chazon Ish, the only way that Torah will transform your Geshem into Ruach, the only way to transform physicality into spirituality is with Amelos. The only way for the Torah to enter your bloodstream, your Ramach Ivarim, is by Amelos. The key to Amelus b'Torah, says the Chazon Ish, is the Maharsha. Meaning the key for the Torah to enter your body. Yeah, you could learn Torah. You could say the words. It could go in one ear and come. But for the way for it to enter your system is the Amelus, and says the Chazon Ish, v'hasefer hakadosh hazeh hu malei his amlus b'dvarim muchram b'amukim. It trains a person in Amelus. It helps a person remember the sugya. By the way, the Hafla writes that when a person learns Be'ion, Be'amelos, you don't have to review as much, because once you get it on that level, it enters you, it's nichnas into you. Says the Chazon Ish, V'dar shalafanenu hechziku ma'oid b'sefer HaKadosh hazeh. Says the Chazon Ish, Rabbi Kever didn't make a move without the Maharsha. Says the Chazon Ish, Miyom she'azvuhu avdu es yedias hapshat. The day people stopped learning Maharsha is the day people stopped understanding the Gemara on the simple level. Yeah, Lamdos, Chakiras, but the day you stop learning the Maharsha is the day you don't understand the Gemara. That's a Chazon Ish. So the Maharsha married the daughter of Moshe Ashkenazi, who's the author of the Zichron Moshe, and the mother-in-law of the Maharsha was a renowned Ba'alas Chesed and Mefarnes Tamei Chachamim, to the point where the Maharsha's mother-in-law supported the yeshiva for him for over 20 years, some say 24 years, to the point where the Maharsha's whole identity became known by his mother-in-law, Eidel. That's why he's called Rav Shmuel Eidels, meaning Eidels Shmuel, because the mother-in-law, the Shviger, supported the Maharsha. So you see how even a woman has the ability to become renowned for all generations for her Hachzakas HaTorah and her participation in the transmission of Torah to Klal Yisrael. The Bach, we were just in Mezhbej, yeah? The Bach was a Rav in Mezhbej, before anybody. The Bach, the Maharsha lived in a time, by the way, of many Gedolim, the Maharam Lublin, the Bach, the Lavush, and the Bach writes about a certain issue. You have the Maharsha. You need to take advice with the Maharsha. The Maharsha is the Gadol Hadar. So I want to tell you over a few great chidushim that the Maharsha says. Maharsha says as follows. By the way, it's interesting. The Maharsha was a great machnas sarech. On the top of his door was the pasuk in Eiv. Bachutz lo yolin ger, dalsi lo ireach eftach. On the Maharsha's threshold, it basically said, my door is open to everyone. So it's interesting, after the Maharsha died, his house was destroyed, but they preserved this slab of the Pasuk Aniyav in a museum here in Ostroh. The Maharsha says in Baba Basra, Ashrei mi shabalakan ve Talmuda biyadai. By the way, the Bali Remes say, Ashrei mi shabalakan. Lakan is Gematria 101. When you review your learning 101 times. Maharsha says, Ashrei mi shabalakan ve Talmudai bi Yadai. Fortunate is someone who doesn't just learn, but someone who writes down his learning. Because when you write, the Rasha says, learning that you write makes a deeper impression on a person than learning you just hear. I'm remembering now, there's a Gemara in Erevin. The Gemara in Erevin says that Reb Meir had a student who did not articulate the words. So Reb Meir's wife, Bruria, came along and she gave him a kick. So you can forget everything. Arucha bakal ushmura. Only when you learn Torah with Ramach Ivarim will the Torah be remembered. So Maharsha wants to know, why when you say the words are you learning Torah b'Ramach Ivarim? So Ramah says a Gavaldig Azach. The Maharsha says when you say words, it creates vibrations, and the vibrations they flush through your body. They're shaking your whole body, so it's like you're learning b'Ramach Ivarim. Says the Maharsha. That's the pshat. Arucha bakoil. When you say the words, it actually vibrates all your machivarim. Says the Maharsha, Kedushin Lamed Aleph. Zechroinam levracha zal has nothing to do when the person passes away. So in levracha, you should say on any tzaddik, even if they're alive. Eila todos Noach. Noach is tzaddik. We're talking about when he was. The Maharsha says Zechroinam levracha. Zeicher tzaddik levracha. Not only when they passed away, even when they're alive. Maharsha says, the Gemara says, you're not supposed to say Amen, don't be Makatzer, and don't be Marach. Don't say, right? Don't be Marach Amen. You know why? Maharsha says, just like you don't want to live too short, sometimes it's also not good to live too long. He says, Arichas Yom is good, but not you don't want to extend your stay in this world. That's Maharsha. Maharsha says amazing thing. Ready for this? There are 4 oisiyos in the Aleph Beis that have the letter Lamed in it. 4 letters that in the letter has a Lamed. Gimel, good. Aleph, Gimel, Dalid, Lamed. Says the Maharsha in Nedarim Samach Beis, there are 4 types of people who learn. One person learns, he wants to be a rabbi, Aleph. He wants to be a Rabbi, he wants to be Magid Shiur. He's doing it for personal kavod. Second kind of guy who learns, he wants to do it for Gemoil. He wants to be rewarded. There's a third kind of guy. He needs to make a living. He needs to say a shir. He has to get a paycheck. Dalid. He's doing it, why? Lefarnes asasme, like a dal, like a poor man. And then there's the lamid, someone who learns lishma. So there are 4 kinds of Torah, 4 kinds of lamids, but there are 4 different types of motivation. Maharsha Masechta Shabbos all of a sudden stops short. Doesn't write anymore. Maharsha says, not because I don't have what to say. He says, because I had to go to the Yurid. It's the business season. And I couldn't be in the yeshiva. And it's when you learn on your own, or you learn by yourself, or in your room, it's not as clear as when you learn b'pilpul chaverim in the yeshiva. And therefore, he only wanted to publish what he learned together with his chabura, but not what he came up with on his own. And this is my favorite. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Adam la'amal yulad, lamed ayin mem lamed. Person was created la'amel. La'amel is Rashi Tevos, lilmoid, almanas, lilamed. That's what a person was created. To learn, to give it over to your family, to your kinderlach, to your eneklach, to your chaverim, to everybody, to whoever you come in contact with. That's the tachlis achayim. Adam la'amel yulad, lilmoid, almanas, lilamed. As we mentioned in the Maharsha, you can't understand Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos. When you hear a kasha of the Maharsha, all of a sudden it crystallizes the shakla v'tarya for you. So this is what the Maharsha bequeathed to us, to Klal Yisrael, and Tehei Zichrei Baruch should be Zoicha, that all tefillah should be niskama.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.